Hello everyone, I hope life is treating you kindly. I'm Lubomira and welcome to all my crafty friends, new and returning. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is day 4 of the holiday card series. If you've missed any of the previous videos, I'll link them in the description below so you can catch up on all the crafty goodness. I'd like to show my gratitude for all the kind words I've received in the previous videos. I am thrilled you are all enjoying this holiday series, and I appreciate that my holiday intro has been so well liked. I particularly like this one, so I'm happy that you seem to like it as well. Everyone has been very kind, and while I feel that I have some high expectations to live up to, it really is a pleasure to share these projects with you. So thank you again. Today's video is an elegant card with another versatile design featuring an ink-blended embossed panel. Now, while I am using it for a holiday card, I think you could easily change up the embossing folder for a variety of different occasions. I'm excited to share this card with you, so let's get into the video. I started off by die cutting some strips of cardstock. I took the largest die from the Honeybee stamp Deckle edge die set and offset a white piece of cardstock by 2 or 3 inches to create a strip that had a ruffled edge on one side. I did the same thing to a narrow piece of white glitter cardstock. When I was done, I set the glitter strip aside for the time being and set off to ink blend the white panel using some Distress Oxide inks. I used the colors Tumbled Glass, Prized Ribbon, and Villainous Potion. I started off with the lightest blue and worked my way up to the darkest purple. I covered the panel largely with the lightest color to make sure I didn't lose it in the blending to the darker colors, and I used the darkest color the least since it was such a rich, deep color. The result was a stunning soft blue that gradually turned into a deep purple. Next, I added some splatter to the panel. I used Picket Fence's Paper Splatter Watercolor in the color Liquid White Snowflakes. This is a new product for me, and it does go on lovely. It's not quite as thick as an acrylic or a tempera paint, but not quite as liquid as a liquid watercolor either. You can water it down, which I did initially. That gives you a more translucent effect, while applying it as is gives it a more opaque finish. It is very pretty, but really it's very comparable to perfect pearl powder mixed in with water. So if you have that on hand, you can use that instead, or any other medium you like. After giving the panel a minute to dry, which really didn't take long, I placed the panel in a Snowflake embossing folder. This folder is called Snowflake Vision, and it's an older Simon Says folder. It took me a second to place the panel where I liked the design best. Now, in retrospect, you could create multiple cards by creating a full panel and then cutting it in half. This card is very mass production friendly, so you could create sets in different colors. You could also change up the theme by switching the embossing folder. I would actually love to create one for spring with some spring flowers or some rabbits with a pastel plaid panel. Too cute. I'd love to hear how you all might change it for a different look. Let me know in the comments below. Once the panel was embossed, the card came together really quickly. I glued the strip of glitter cardstock behind the embossed panel so that it peeked out along the ruffled edge. The patterns of the edge of the 2 pieces line up pretty well since the die is the same and gives the 2 panels the appearance of being torn at the same time. Since die cutting the panel made the embossing panel slightly shorter than what would be needed to span across a full A2 panel, that being 5.5 inches, I trimmed the top and the bottom of the panel so that it would have straight edges and would fit the length of a 3¼ by 5 inch panel. I also trimmed the straight side so that the entire embossed panel roughly covered half of the white one. Once I had the embossed panel trimmed, I attached it to the white panel using foam squares. I used foam squares because they were thinner than my regular foam tape, and I didn't want to add too much bulk to the finished project. These foam squares are only 1 millimeter thick, while my tape is 2. I used the help of my positioning platform to place the embossed panel on top of the white panel by pushing everything in the corner as I pressed the 2 pieces together. For the sentiment, I used Peace and Joy to You and Yours from the Hero Arts Joyful Christmas Message stamp set. This is a newer set and I love the style of the font in it. It has a number of large script greetings that are accompanied by smaller printed companion phrases to complete the message. I gave my greeting a two-tone look, first stamping in blue pigment ink and then black for the second part of the message. To stamp the sentiment, I first arranged the words, placing the first large script greeting in my stamping platform and testing the placement by stamping it on a scrap piece of paper. I then rotated my stamp plate and placed the second set of words under the first stamped ones. I test stamped that sentiment, and since I was happy at how they looked together, I repeated the process on the actual card. I will mention that as I stamped, I was careful to wipe any ink off of the stamping plate before stamping. I did this because since I attached the embossed panel to the white panel before stamping it, it was slightly higher than what a flat panel would normally be. And I didn't want to run the risk of getting any smudges on my project in case the plate came in contact with the card front. It's just a precaution to keep in mind when you're stamping things that are already layered. Once I stamped the greeting, I applied embossing powder to the wet ink to seal it. I sprinkled clear embossing powder over the greeting and then heat set it with my heat tool. Pigment ink tends to take longer to dry than dyeing, so this just protects your greeting from being smudged as you work and handle the card. It also gives the sentiment a glossier finish. I created a card base using a light blue card panel, which I attached to a white card base using liquid glue. I then added my embossed panel to the card front using foam squares, again to limit the bulkiness of the finished card. Lastly, I added some iridescent drops to the front of the card, placing them in the center of some of the larger snowflakes. And that's it for this card. I find this card to be very elegant, and the combination of blue and purple really reminds me of winter. Again, I can completely see this design used for other occasions too, which is a plus in my book. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me for this 4th day of the holiday card series. I really enjoyed our time together, and I hope you're having fun watching these videos too. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, leave me those comments. Your comments always brighten my day. I hope you'll join me tomorrow for day 5 of this holiday card series. Until then, have a wonderful night, and I hope life treats you kindly. See you tomorrow. Bye!